there's this idea, if you're 16 years old or 14 years old and you feel unhappy and unhealthy in your body, and that's totally common for many different adolescents out there, they feel as if they have to undertake some sort of radical transformation in order to attain happiness. And I feel almost certain that after this radical transformation in their lives, they don't feel very much different at all. And that, to me, is the ultimate tragedy of this, is that's what they've convinced themselves, and there's a cottage industry of people trying to tell them it's not normal to be uncomfortable when you're an adolescent. This will fix it. And most of the time, it's a lie.
So we've seen a number of states start to take action on the issue of what the left calls gender-affirming care for youth, but what I think is more properly called transgender hormone and surgeries for adolescents and for kids. And so this is a major issue that has gotten a lot of attention in the last year or so. Some folks have done very good work in raising this because it's gone through the usual cycle when the left knows they're doing something that isn't going to play well with a majority of the American people, perhaps even 70 or 80% of the American people. They always start out by saying, that's not really happening. Why are you so focused on that? And then when it's clear it is happening, they say, why are you such a bigot? Why are you even talking about this issue? You have to think of it the way that we want you to. And so they've done that with transgender surgery for kids. You know, out in Utah, the governor there just signed a bill put on his desk. This is Governor Spencer Cox, that will ban youth. This is from the PBS write-up of this, Clay, from receiving gender-affirming health care. That's the way they're presenting this. No, really what it will do is at least try to apply the brakes a little bit to giving teenagers, 12, 13, 14 years old, hormone blockers, and perhaps even engage in or be given surgery that is supposed to change their gender. And, you know, I was really remarkable. I saw this and I wanted everyone to hear it. It was Jordan Peterson, who everyone knows Jordan Peterson. He does very, very good work. He's with the Daily Wire now. Here he is, Clay, talking about something we discussed on the show, which was back in the Disney v. DeSantis throwdown era. There was that Disney executive who spoke about having a transgender child and separately a pansexual child. This is what she was talking about. This is the head of creative content at Disney, one of the most storied content companies in all history, if not the most. And this is how Jordan Peterson did his analysis of that by the numbers. Listen.
A while back, Disney executive mentioned on video, this is when Florida went after Disney, was all when this was happening. She came out and said, I think she was head of domestic programming for Disney. She said, well, I have two children, 5 and 7. One is trans and the other is pansexual. And I just thought mathematically right away, it's like the chance you have a trans kid is 1 in 3,000. That's not a very high chance. And let's say the chance that you have a pansexual kid is the same, whatever pansexual means. I don't even know how to calculate those odds. But whatever that is rarer than trans because no one ever even heard about it until 5 years ago. So the joint probability that you have a trans kid and a pansexual kid is 1 in 9 million. The odds that you're a pathological narcissist sacrificing your own children to the glorification of your compassion is 8,999,999 to 1. So, like, do you have a trans kid and a pansexual kid, or are you a devouring mother?
That's so well said. It is amazing how often the most far left-wing, inclusive, and I'm putting it in quotation marks, people end up with kids like this. And I think I've said this on the show before, but one, you can't get a tattoo in most states under the age of 18. That's because we decide that you are not of sound enough mind to decide to get a tattoo. How in the world can it be permissible to have gender reassignment surgery before you're 18? We won't even let you get a barbed wire tattoo legally on your arm, and we're going to let someone chop off your genitals, chop off your breast before the age of 18? I mean, that's madness. It's child abuse, and that should be the law of the land everywhere. And I give credit to Spencer Cox in Utah, the governor there, for signing this, but this should be a law that every Republican governor in the country should sign. It's not remotely controversial. Also, if you are out there arguing that your child is gender non-binary and they are 6 or 7 years old or even younger, that's child abuse too. No 6-year-old knows what gender they are in terms of wanting to flip their gender. And my wife pointed this out, but I think it's important. We don't let 6-year-olds pick their own meals, because if they could, they would eat birthday cake for every meal. Doesn't sound awful, by the way. And for a 6-year-old, it sounds downright delectable. So if we don't let a 6-year-old choose every meal they eat, and anyone who has raised a 6-year-old knows that experience of saying, before you can eat X, you've got to finish Y. It's a huge part of parenting. How can anyone justify this idea that a child should be able to pick their gender? It's not coming from the kid. It's coming from the parent who wants to feel special and inclusive. I think Jordan Peterson absolutely nailed that. And it's the fact that that Disney executive can brag to all of the other people in Los Angeles about how inclusive she is because her family is so inclusive itself. I don't even remember. What does pansexual mean, Buck? You're attracted to everything?
Yes. Everything.
You literally will sleep with anyone. And that's different than bisexual. How?
Because it includes intersex people. Bisexual, I believe, relies on a gender normativity of cisgender individuals, whereas if you are pansexual, you will also include in your pansexuality the possibility of an intersex individual who is non-cisgender.
I can't even keep up with all this.
Do you like that, everybody? That's how it goes.
That's a really your ability to know all this is both impressive and troubling simultaneously. And I can't even keep up with all this terminology. But in all honesty, like, who cares? Right? Like, why is this in any way an obsession of the left? I think the answer is because there's so little else to fight for at this point that they just have to make up stuff. It's all just really, I think, by and large, people who are very disturbed mentally and unhappy, and they think if they make a dramatic change in their life that it's somehow going to cure the deep well of darkness that they feel inside them. And I hate to have to say that, but doesn't it feel that way? That there's this idea, if you're 16 years old or 14 years old and you feel unhappy and unhealthy in your body, and that's totally common for many different adolescents out there, they feel as if they have to undertake some sort of radical transformation in order to attain happiness. And I feel almost certain that after this radical transformation in their lives, they don't feel very much different at all. And that, to me, is the ultimate tragedy of this, is that's what they've convinced themselves, and there's a cottage industry of people trying to tell them it's not normal to be uncomfortable when you're an adolescent. This will fix it. And most of the time, it's a lie.
And also, you don't have to be an expert to know when people are lying to you. You can just think it through critically and come to the proper conclusion, which is that something is wrong in a situation that is outside of what would be your expertise. As in, I don't have to be a doctor to know that when I was thinking about having, effectively, Clay, an ankle reconstruction surgery about a decade ago, because my ankle's a total mess, they walked me through all kinds of possibilities. We might have to, take the screws out again. You might get an infection. You might, all the stuff. Doctors do this with any surgery, right? Like, look, If you're going to be under, it's anesthesia. It's rare, but bad things they take you through all that. You'll notice that the moment anybody says, hey, when you have top surgery as a female to become trans, you're actually you might have lifelong pain, numbness, all kinds of things. It'll affect your hormones, whatever the side effects may be. You're not even allowed to discuss, just like we saw with the vaccines. Is it even possible there's a side effect? Shut up, you anti-science lunatic. You're not allowed to say that. Well, as we know, of course, there were side effects. They just suppressed them. Same thing is happening with transgender surgery for children. What are the long-term effects of taking puberty blockers on bone density, go through a whole list of side effects? If you bring up those side effects, the progressive left, the Democrat base, will say you're a bigot. That's all you really have to know something's up, right? This is about kids and their health, and we can't even know what the risk factors are. That's shut down. Tells you everything.
I agree. And it should be a law. I mean, I'm glad Utah's got it now, but this should be the law of the land everywhere.